Alright, so here's my Talaria StingR. So I did a review between the StingR and my Monkey, right? So now let's look at the Talaria versus my my Trail125, right? CT125. So this is it's like a dual sport. It's a mini dual sport. Is basically what it is. So it's definitely more closer in competition with the Talaria than comparing it to the Monkey, because the Monkey really is it's a street bike. It's a mini, at best it's a scrambler. It's a mini scrambler. Whereas this thing is, because of the bigger wheels and the construction and such, it's more of a dual sport, or really I wouldn't even call it a dual sport. It's more like a utility. It's more of a utility bike, right? With the big old rack in the back and everything, and I added the rack here and all this other stuff. But anyways, oh man, this thing is dirty. Look at that. I rode this thing wet, and I put it away wet, and that was like back during winter time. So that was months ago. I should have hosed it down, but I didn't. Anyways, so let's look at the difference between as far as riding experience and such goes. So this bike, Honda says, I think Honda says the curb weight on this is 260 pounds, and with me adding other stuff like the lights, the hand guards, and rack, and all this other stuff, it's going to be more. So let's say it's 270 pounds. So it's easily 120 pounds more than the Talaria StingR. The StingR, I believe they say it's 145, but I put on the 2118. So bigger wheels, bigger tires, so it's a little bit heavier. So let's say 150, 150-ish pounds. So as far as how they ride, just like the Monkey, the Trail125 feels much more substantial than the Talaria does. It's it's that weight. As far as off-road goes, that's sort of a positive and a negative. The positive is that it feels more substantial, but the negative is that it's heavier. And when the more technical it gets, the harder it is to ride this than it is to ride that. On technical trails. And this thing is still the stock suspension, and I think the suspension is only like 3 inches or 3.5 inches or something like that. It's real. It's barely anything. It's definitely for sure no more than 4 inches. So it's barely anything versus the Talaria. There's 800 millimeters front and rear. So 800 millimeters is basically 8 inches. Is that right? 800 millimeters. No, excuse me, 200 millimeters. 200 millimeters is 8 inches. So this thing is 200 millimeters front and rear. So that's basically 8 inches. So that's double the suspension of the Trail125. As far as on-road riding goes, this thing, just like the Monkey, this thing feels so much more substantial, so much more solid. On-road riding, this is just better. The funny thing is that both of these have about the same top speed. This thing tops out at about 50 miles an hour. If the conditions are just right, like tailwind and all that stuff, drafting or whatever, you could get to like 55. But otherwise, 50 it's a solid 50. Same thing with the Talaria. The Talaria is pretty much a 50 mile an hour, when it's unrestricted, right? When you cut the cable, 50 miles an hour. So top speed is the same, pretty much. But this thing feels substantially more. It's much more comfortable. Riding position, riding ergonomics, and the handlebars are higher, taller relative to the seat, and the seat's cushier, and it's just a better road going bike compared to the StingR. But off-road, I think the StingR is definitely better just because it's lighter. And now that I have the 2118s, you can see the wheel size. It's bigger. The 18 is bigger than this 17. The Trail uses 17 both front and rear. I actually have the same tires. So this is the Shinko 241s. These are also the Shinko 241s. So same tires on here. But obviously it's on a 17-inch rim wheels versus 18 in the back and 21 up front. let's see what else can I say about it. Yeah, so it's just on road, this is a better bike. Even just going around, this has a 1.5 gallon gas tank. It'll do 100 miles. This thing, you'd be lucky if you get 40 miles on eco mode, right? Eco mode is like 40. It's a 40-mile range, approximately. And that's on the road. That's not even off road. If you ride off road, it's gonna be even less. So this is strictly, it's a, for me anyways, it's strictly a dirt bike. It's a mini dirt bike. Is what it is. Speaking of dirt bike, I haven't even taken it on the dirt. I haven't had time. But anyways, back to the trail. Yeah, the trail is just a better street bike. So if you think about the price of the Talaria, how much this costs, the trail is actually about the same price. The trail runs for, I think, about $4,000, right? After tax and all that other stuff, it's going to be about 4.5, maybe $5,000 out the door. But you get a plate, right? You get a plate, so it's street legal. You don't have to worry about it. You go on road, off road, it doesn't matter, right? You're all good. The StingR, you're in the gray zone. This is not a motorized bicycle. People are trying to say, oh, this is a class 2 or class 3, whatever bullshit. That's all a bunch of bullshit. This ain't nothing. This is not a electric bicycle. All right, that's the bottom line. This thing, at best, the closest that it comes to is a moped. And a moped, at least in California, I don't know about other states, but in California, even with a moped, you still need it to be licensed. You still need a plate, and you need a driver license as well. A motorcycle license, a M2 motorcycle license to be specific. So you still need an M2. If you're gonna get an M2, get it for a moped, and that's the only thing that M2 is good for. M2 is good for a moped only, nothing else. If you're gonna get an M2, you might as well get an M1, and when you have an M1, well, here you go, M1. Yeah, so yeah, bottom line, as far as like going around exploring, this is it. And I haven't finished working on it yet, but I got the center rack, I got the front rack, top of the headlight rack, I got the screen, rock screen on there. I even got the what's it called, auxiliary lights, right? I see my auxiliary lights. I'm basically I set this bike up for travel, like long distance travel. I was gonna do that with my CRF 300 Rally, but I'm like, maybe in the my CRF 300 Rally over here, maybe that would be good for like domestic travel. It's okay, but if I was gonna go international, off the beaten path and such, I'd rather ride this bike. It's just lighter, easier to manage, more frugal, so I could go further with less gas. And it's more, this giant ass rack. It's better suited for travel, I think. And I like to travel with small bikes, mini bikes, slow speed, so I can see more. With bigger bikes, you can't see nothing. You're going too fast. So anyways, yeah. Definitely, overall, this is better for everything except for dirt biking. If you're gonna go dirt biking, this is not the bike for you. This doesn't have enough travel. One, it doesn't have enough travel. Two, there's not that much ground clearance. And three, it's kind of heavy because this thing weighs more than a dirt bike. A dirt bike is about 250 pounds. This thing's stock is 260 pounds, so 10 pounds more, right? Four, not that much power, but really you don't need that much power. You just put along, it's fine. But this thing, it feels like a real motorcycle. You ride it, it's very solid. Everything feels like a real motorcycle. The brakes and everything, look at these brakes. Look how massive these brakes are compared to the bicycle brakes. Basically the Turon and the Talaria, they use mountain bike brakes, right? Downhill mountain bike brakes and downhill mountain bike fork. Even I think the shock is probably a downhill mountain bike shock as well, right there. But anyways, so this bike, everything is a real motorcycle, so it feels solid and substantial. Even though you look at this fork looks puny, right? You look at this fork, it looks puny compared to this fork. This is a massive looking fork, but this thing, when you ride around on it, it feels more solid. You know, you would think, oh, a flimsy little fork like this, it will feel more, you know, it would feel more wonky or more wobbly or whatever, right? More flexible, whatever, but it feels more solid. This whole bike just feels more solid. You know, it feels like real, you know, like I said, it feels like a real motorcycle. It's just smaller. It's just a, you know, a mini bike versus a full-size bike. But it does feel like a real motorcycle. Whereas the StingR, the Talaria, this doesn't feel like a real motorcycle. It doesn't quite feel like a mountain bike either. You know, it's definitely much more substantial, or at least in weight, anyways. But like how it rides and such, it feels more like how it rides. It feels more like it does kind of feel more like a downhill bike, and how it rides, the feel of it. More so, it feels more like a downhill bike than it does a motorcycle. Even a mini bike, you know, I've had CRF. I've had a CRF 125 big wheel, which is basically equivalent to this bike, I would say. And I would say this bike is about equivalent to a 125 4-stroke. And that bike feels more substantial than this bike does, even though they weigh like the same and they're all about the same size. You know, even the stock wheels on the CRF 125, the big wheel is I think the same size as the stock wheels on this one. Because the regular CRF 125 small wheel one, the wheels are actually pretty small. I think it's a 16 front and 14 back, whereas the big wheel one is, I think, 17 in the back and 19 in the front, something like that. So, you know, more closer to the stocks on the Talaria. But again, even that bike, it feels more substantial than this bike. And I think that bike, and also, like, you know, this bike and even my Monkey, the frame, the chassis, it's just one down tube that comes down, right? Same thing with the CRF 125, it's just one tube, but this thing is like it's actually, you know, a twin spar. So this frame is pretty solid, but for some reason this bike does not feel, it doesn't feel solid like a real motorcycle does. So something about that, I'm not sure what it is, why it doesn't feel quite solid like a real motorcycle does, but it doesn't. Anyways, so yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. Again, if you're mostly riding in the street, it's better to get this. You know, it's street legal. You don't have to worry about cops hassling you about whatever. You go anywhere you want. You know, you don't have to worry about charging, none of that stuff. If you're going to go dirt biking, goofing around on the dirt, that's the one to go. This one not so much, because it's kind of big and heavy. Yeah, so anyways, those are my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching.